Okay, this will be Atlas's second session doing the endo tapping. So I'm just gonna put his halter on. It's best to do this with a halter on. You don't want him at liberty and then just kind of running away from the pressure and getting away and having a release from that. You wanna be able to talk him into staying still. I don't want to pull or do anything, but just kind of follow him with the halter on. So it's important that we have that. I'm just going to get my things together. I'm going to have my dressage whip with my vet wrap around the end, just made like a little ball, and you can just use that, or you can just use a dressage whip on its own too. I'm just going to kind of rub it on him a little bit, and then I'm just going to start tapping in the middle of his neck. He's starting to respond to it right away, and he was moving around, shaking his head. He lowered his head a bit, so I'm just going to release, and then he really wants to step into me, so I'm just trying to make my own space and not put a ton of pressure on him because he's not being bad. I just want him to move away and not be real close to me because he's getting into the habit of doing that. So I'm just kind of pushing my energy toward his so that he's just staying a good distance away. I don't want him far away, but he just wants to be too close. So now I'm going to move on to do a bit more tapping. This was a nice response. He just kind of lowered his head. Now he's kind of thinking about it a little bit, looking away. I'm just going to give him a minute and try and release that. You might have to wait for a little bit. And fidgeting is normal. This is normal too. I'm just going to kind of go with him. I probably should have let him just continue there because he probably has some tension to release there. But again, I'm experimenting, so not the best at doing this, but he is licking and chewing right now. You just can't see because I'm in the way. I'm kind of shaking his head there. There we go. You can see a better angle of him right there. And he's starting to engage with me. Like, he was looking at me. He lowered his head a little bit. He's still licking and chewing here. There was a nice head lower too. That looks really nice, actually. Nope. He was kind of sniffing the end of my crop here because I was like, if he wants to chew on it, that's fine. And he kind of poked himself in the nose and scared himself. But he came back and now he's just sniffing it. And now he kind of put his lips on it there and then licked and chewed it, and he moved away. And that's fine. This is my example with the lead rope here is what I want is he left, he kind of felt the end of it and came back. That's what I was saying in the beginning about having the lead rope on the horse, just so you can have that so they're not just leaving and then you have another problem. So, because we don't want them to think that, oh, here's some pressure and you just run away from it and it'll go away. That's not the lesson I want either. But I'm just going to start working on the other side here. Same roughly place on his neck. And I'm just going to tap rhythmically, not hard, but not super light. So it's not just tickling him. And we're just going to wait for a change. So there he blinked his eyes. I'm going to take it away. He wants to follow it. He's kind of engaging with me here. His head immediately came down. And I'm just going to wait on him. There's going to be a lot of waiting, so plan ahead for that. Don't do this when you're rushing around and you want to get something else done. Plan this when you for sure have plenty of time. Like, you don't have an agenda, you're going to have to wait because sometimes it'll take 10, 20 minutes for the horse to relax and lick and chew. So if he wants to explore the stick, that's fine. If he thinks it might be a target, I'll allow him to look at it, but definitely don't have a timeline for this. Just allow the horse as much time as he needs. My my start to continue tapping is if he just gets distracted and he's looking at something else, or he has more tension in his body, then I'll go ahead and start again. But if he's just relaxed and he's kind of working through it, then I'll just wait until he releases some tension by licking or chewing or blinking or lowering his head, doing something, kind of investigating me. Those are all signs that he's releasing that tension. There we have a lick and chew. Sometimes a lot of the horses need to put something in their mouths. So that'll start that grazing switch over to the parasympathetic nervous system. So like he kind of had the whip in the end of his mouth and then he started licking and chewing. So he's just kind of sniffing my hands. He's investigating, which is fine. I want all of that to happen. And that's part of what does happen when you're endo tapping. So he wanted to kind of lick my hand, and then you can see he had turned his head away. He was licking and chewing too. So that was really good. he's investigating. He's more interested in me than he was before. And he was more relaxed too. He wants to be inquisitive, and I just have my hand flat and he's just licking it. So it's not a great angle, but my hand's just flat like I would feed him like a treat, and he's just licking my hand. And I'll let him do that for as long as he wants to. So he's kind of looking away there, and I'm just going to go ahead and start tapping like right in front of the withers. And just kind of wait for him here. I'm going to kind of go with him. This is like the fidgeting is a show, like a tell that he is starting to release some tension, though. He's not completely shut down. Same here with this lip thing. And I notice Atlas does this. The others don't really do this, but he does. So I'm going to go ahead and stop tapping because he started licking and chewing. And I'm not sure, so he wanted to kind of chew on the end of the dressage whip, but then he was like, oh, I'm not sure if I can put that in my mouth. So for Atlas, he does the lip curl a lot. And I'm not sure if that's just like his way of releasing tension or starting to, like where he's starting to go back to grazing with his lips, or if it's just like a learned process, because I did start to stop tapping when he would lip curl, and so maybe he would just learn that on his own, so I'm not really sure. It's one or the other, but he is the only one that does it. So it just was an interesting thing to note. So I've moved to the other side. So I've practiced kind of, I'll do one side like their whole body, or I'll do one side and then I'll switch to the other side. So it just kind of depends what works best on your horse. I was just, again, experimenting and seeing what worked too. So again, he's fidgeting here. I'm just going to kind of go with him, but he's about to release some tension. You can't see a great shot of his head there, but I think his nostrils were kind of round there. So I'm just going to wait for him to kind of relax that. So he blinked his eyes and brought his head toward me and kind of lowered his neck. So I'm going to stop, let him connect with me here. You can look around. I'm just going to kind of wait on him. I'll let him move around. I'm just going to let him kind of go until he gets to the end of the line. I'm not going to pull on him. He came back on his own before he got to the end. Sometimes it's the horses need to move around, so it's important that you let them move. I'll let him investigate the whip if he wants to sniff that or chew on the end. And you'll see with Castor, my other Mustang, he's really, really mouthy. Like, he wants to chew on the dressage whip. He wants to lick my hands. He wants to investigate me. So that's just kind of part of it. But before that, Atlas was never, ever inquisitive like that. He was just very to himself. So he'll continue with the lip curling here. So I'm kind of wading through that and stopping the tapping once he's licking and chewing. So I'm trying not to reward that. I want to reward the licking and chewing, but I want to reward just overall in general that he is relaxed when I put pressure on, so that he's not afraid during a time when I would put pressure on him. That's my overall goal. So again, he's kind of interested in the handle of my dressage whip. He's kind of investigating it some, and I'll let him do that, and I'll just let him hang out if he wants to investigate and nose me and sniff me, lick me, whatever. That's fine. As long as he doesn't get pushy to where he's bringing his shoulders and his, there we go, a nice yawn and lip curl again. And he's not eating any treats, so I thought that was interesting too. But as long as he's not bringing his feet super close or pushing his shoulders on me, I'm okay with him like keeping space between our bodies, but he's bringing his nose toward me. I'm okay with that and being inquisitive with that. And then if he were just kind of pushy, I would just, again, like I did in the beginning of the video, just kind of use my energy and like open up my arms, wave my arms a bit or my whip, and just kind of in his general direction. I don't necessarily want to chase him away, but I want to clear the space around me. So I'll kind of rub first with my whip, and then I'll bring it back up. And I'm just going to work on the shoulder. I I believe the Fox Point Farms research that I had, they had like the certain zones of and the order that you do them in. I don't think I'd found that at this point. I think I'd found another article I'll have to find and link to, but I knew it was you started on the withers or the neck area and then moved on. So I wasn't necessarily doing it in the specific order that I had found later on, but I didn't really find or notice a big difference as far as the shoulder was. The biggest difference is when you get to the hips, but I like to start on the neck or the withers, and then you can kind of work your way from there. I just wouldn't necessarily start on the hip. He's not really doing a lot of difference on the shoulder. Like, he's not showing a big reaction to that different location. Some horses might, and you might have to work on that area more than others. Atlas's was definitely on the neck where he kind of showed more of a release than anywhere else. There, he kind of brought his attention toward me. He's blinking. He wants to engage with me, so I'll stop tapping there and let him lick and chew here. And your sessions don't need to be this long. They could be longer, they could be shorter. I wouldn't get too crazy with it though, especially in the beginning. I want them to think that this is fun and like an enjoyable experience, and I don't want it to be a drilling experience. So like I do some tapping and some releases and it's all fine and good, and then he can go back. I don't want it to be a drilling where I force him to stand here and like make him like tap his whole body and he is not enjoying it. So I don't want to do that. So I just want to read my horse and make sure that he's okay with it. So I believe here he's just kind of licking my hand or sniffing my hand. It's just hard to see from this angle. He did do a lot of licking though. I remember that part. I'm going to do a little bit on his chest. Some horses might get confused here because that is a common area where we ask them to back up. If they're backing up, I would just continue with them until they stop and relax. So here he's going to back up. I'm just going to go with him. He's just figuring out what I want. And this is kind of his default to, he's like, oh, this is what you want. I should have stopped a little bit earlier there when he started licking and chewing. But he's figuring it out. That's what I want. I want him to think, okay, pressure is a puzzle, and not a lot of pressure, a little bit. And I want you to figure out what it is that I want with it. Do I want you to back up? Do I want you to stand still? What is it that I want with the pressure versus just, oh my gosh, it's terrifying, I need to run or fight it. So that's my overall goal here. And I know endotapping has a lot of other good things too, but that's my goal. There we have some more of that. He likes to do that. And there we have lots of nice licking and chewing, blowing her nose. That's fantastic. And really, I could have just been done at this point because this is a nice big release. Oh, again, he's blowing his nose. Now he's going to kind of walk off. And he's like, nope, maybe not. He's just trying to expend some of that tension by walking around. But the look on his face is amazing. Like, he's relaxed, his nose or his nostrils are just kind of open and loose, and his face is relaxed. He's blowing his nose again. Like, he's just a lot more relaxed horse. He wants to carry a lot of tension in his body, and you can see that in the other videos. And I really think that this was a turning point for him with that. So this is what you couldn't see from the other angle, is he's investigating, he's looking at me, all really good things. So I'm just kind of moving him so the camera can see, but I don't think he necessarily needed to be tapped at this point. And there he immediately blows his nose and I stop, and he's kind of like putting me on one side. And if he does, that's okay. I'll tap on this side. But really, he doesn't need it at this point because he is very relaxed. So I could have just put him up at this point. There we have another nose blow and some lip curling. But it's just a very interesting method to use. It was very cool. But here he's connecting with me. He's sniffing the stick. He's got his attention on me. He's just interested more than he has before. So I'm going to go down his back now. He thinks step away, and I'm just going to follow him. And that's where you can have that on, like when on his side and his hindquarters and his back, you can have that confusion a lot more than in the other parts. There, I should stop there because he's licking and chewing and yawning, and I should have stopped a few moments earlier, but that's a huge release too. So I could have ended at this point as well. Lots of yawns, lots of tension released. And then after he's done yawning, see how he's connected? Like he's got his head turned toward me. He's investigating me. He's kind of just, he's not just standing next to me looking at something else. He's standing near me like we're having a conversation. He's just more connected. It's a hard thing to explain. So, but he just, this was really cool for me because he just had all this tension is starting to come out, and that's really cool for him. And he's sniffing me and engaging. He's just not normally like that. And he's still like that now, so it's pretty interesting. I don't necessarily want him that close. I'm just going to put a little bit pressure, kind of more up than toward him, because I don't really want to chase him, but I want him to just kind of take a step back. His eyes relaxed and blinking, and I like where his neck is at. He's definitely not shut down. His ears were swiveling. He looks great.